Welcome to Apache Karaf Essentials. I'm Jamie Goodier. Today we're going to talk about Apache ServiceMix. More specifically, why it is you should be migrating. It's been out now for well over 7 years. It was our original place. You wanted to do integrations. The community has since mostly moved over to Apache Karaf, but there are quite a few stragglers, and that's what this video is for. That being said, if you're an engineering manager, a CTO, an architect, anyone who is responsible for managing the technical debt of running an older system, please watch this video and think about upgrading this to Apache Karaf 446 or newer. I will tell you with a caveat that we are planning at Apache Karaf to have an integration-focused distribution coming out soon, but in the meanwhile, let's get that work started now so you can reap all those benefits. If you need a little bit more reason why you should be doing this other than just upgraded libraries, better performance, newer Java versions, think about all the CVEs that you're going to be able to work around. ServiceMix 7 has over 130 of them reported. Karaf currently has 0 for itself. And as we release newer versions, when newer versions evolve to libraries and integrations, yeah, you're keeping on the closer to the new bleeding edge. That's where you want to be, not on something that's 7 years old with lots of known issues. That being said, you would need to have an idea of how much work is this going to be to migrate my perfectly functional application. It's been sitting there for years and years, seems to have no problems. Why do I want to do this now? Well, the original language it was written in has already gone end of life. If you move over to Karaf, it bases down to 11, Java 11, but it is comfortable running all the way up to the most modern LTSs, Java 21, and there's builds going on to support the latest Javas as they come out. There's been a lot of Maven plugin updates. All of that is beneficial. Pick those up. You'll get more capabilities and solve some bugs. Good things to have. And of course, the library updates, latest CXF, the latest Camel, the latest ActiveMQ. Bringing all of those into your system will help resolve issues that you may have had or just not noticed yet. Get yourself up onto these, and it'll make your developer's life a lot easier. That being said, we have created an application sample that we originally built in ServiceMix 7 many years ago. It was actually presented at a conference. And we'd like to show you this application as we migrate to modern Apache Karaf. So you get a bit of an idea of the kind of work you have to do and some of the tricks of the trades we use to get ourselves from ServiceMix up to modern day code. So with all that said, let's look at the architecture of the sample code, and then we'll dive onto the IntelliJ console and show you the code. So very high level, the application we built was a backend for front end to support a order processing system. There were several parts of the stack that were done for mobile clients, web browsers, third-party integrations. Each one of them had a module in the stack that would be the backend for that front end. And then there was a single module that was a downstream services that could take in orders that came in from any of those front ends and pass it along to the appropriate manufacturing backend. Taking a little bit of a closer look at this now, at how it was implemented, we did this in Apache Camel. There was 2 sets of routes that we were mostly concerned with. The first would be in the backend for front end, in which the incoming request would come into our processing. We'd immediately drop a copy of that order down to a queue and reply back to the caller, whatever that may have been, that you got that served. So yeah, response okay, we accepted your request, carry on, so they can keep going. Now on the queue, we had the original order. We had a second Camel route that was listening to that queue, could pick up the message, put it through a splitter, that's just an EIP that would say, hey, take this message and split apart what's inside of it, and send it to the appropriate locations. In our case, manufacturer ABC and XYZ. The way this worked for testing this, just to demo the code, is we would use the curl command and a JSON body that includes some customer data and a couple of items inside of an order. And you would immediately see on your terminal a order response saying, thank you for your order. And then if you were to drop down onto the directory of the platform you're running or JVM on, you could see the orders were split out between ABC and XYZ. Let's take a look at this in IntelliJ and inspect the code and run on the terminal. Before we get into this code, I want to mention that all of this is available on the Savoirs Git repo. Read the show notes and get the URL, pull the code, and you can play along. Before we dive into the code, let's have a quick gander of what's inside of our project. We have two main folders, one for ServiceMix, the other for Apache Karaf. This represents our two implementations, ServiceMix being the original implementation of our code. We're going to take a very quick look at this code and how it's laid out. Karaf will be laid out the same way, just with updated versions and some tweaks to the code because of the updates to all the libraries. The way the ServiceMix project was designed, we had a module for the backend for frontend, so that is the part that took requests from clients. We drop things down to a wiretap and then respond back to the users. We received your order. We have the downstream services that could read the orders that went onto our queue and split up all the items inside of it and send it to appropriate manufacturers. We also have a features file, which is what we use to tell the container, here's all of the dependencies and everything we need to install in order to start our application. And we have the models. This is the Java representation that we use for serializing and deserializing our requests are coming across the wires. And of course, a parent POM that we use to set up all of our versions and our plugins to build our code. Under the Karaf folder, we have the same general organization, but we have updated this to be able to use the latest versions that we get from Karaf. In the README file, you'll be able to see some of the specific updates we had to do. Beginning with, we've moved up to Java 11. Various libraries have to be updated just because of that. All of our plugins, we update them to the same version that Karaf is currently using, so a lot of little updates happen there, and that also means some configurations in our POM files have to be updated as things become deprecated or new feature capabilities have been added. We also updated all of the versions of our major libraries and some of the tertiary libraries to support those to make sure everything's going to run nicely together. Now let's get into a little bit of the more fun parts. For CXF, there was quite a few updates. Two of the big ones was the update from JAVX to Jakarta, and then a small change to the JSON provider. We needed to add a couple of additional dependencies for our models, so we include Jakarta, and we also had to update ourselves to a Jackson for doing our serialization. Let's have a quick look at what this really meant. We took our original models, so I'll bring one of those up here on the screen, and you'll notice that we have namespaces like JavaX. We see it especially here in the order class. In our newer version, we update those to use all of the Jakarta namespaces, and we also had to include a couple of extra annotations in order for these things to be processed nicely as JSON objects. Where you'll see this come into play, and we'll go over to the blueprint for the front routes on Karaf. We've updated our CXF provider from the original JSON provider to Jackson. We updated that provider due to our changes in CXF version. Now let's have a quick gander at the downstream services as well. The largest change that we had to make in here was due to a change in how Camel works for splitter. Between versions 2 and 3, we now no longer just pass the bare object into the splitter, we have to provide it an exchange. So what we'll see in our code is we have the product splitter, but now instead of taking it into order, we now take an exchange. We extract from the exchange that object, and then we process it as we were doing before. This represents most of the code changes we had to make while going from ServiceMix up to Karaf 446. We did go into the Karaf features folder and we updated the features XML to include some additional libraries just to make it a little easier to make the deployment. In our terminals, we can do a quick Maven build and we'll see that the application will build cleanly. And in our README file, we provide you with the feature repo add and install commands to deploy that into an awaiting Karaf. Now I've already gone ahead and loaded that into my Karaf instance, so this one is ready for us to start making requests to it. So in a separate terminal, I'm going to send a curl with a sample order JSON to the REST order add endpoint, and we'll see that we get a status response immediately back saying, thank you for your order. If we were to go into the Karaf directory and take a look in the brand new target folder, we're going to see in here, target manufacturers, and we'll see that we have listings for manufacturers ABC and for XYZ, representing that we are able to do the same workload that was being done on the original code, but now we're doing that with the latest from Apache Karaf. With that being said, that's the end of our ServiceMix 7 to Apache Karaf 4.46 migration. With a little bit of planning, a little bit of time and effort, it's not too difficult to do this migration. That being said, if you're having any troubles, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to give some support. In the meantime, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to see more Apache Karaf content, take a look at some of our other videos and those from our team. And in the meantime, have a great day. Thank you so much.